Dear audience, today's topic is the entomophagy, the Mediterran diet and the Paleo diet with its modifications. The question is that once more insectivore, this is the destiny of the humanity, that popcorn with eyes, or eating the different form of insects like our ancestors, our relatives, the apes. The apes prefer to eat insects, and they have also kitinase activity produced by the intestinal mucosa to digest the chitin structure of the insects. In this way, it is not a great surprise that with the shortage of the protein sources in the world, we can also try to use the insects as a food source. In the history, you can read even in the Bible that John's clothing was a rough coat of camel's hair with leather belt around his waist, and his food was locust and wild honey, Matthew 3:4-5. You see that John the Baptist used to be not a vegan, because camel hair was the coat, but insectivore was, because used locust. According other sources, it wasn't a locust but St. John's bread, but in my mind it is a locust. The entomophagy, or insect eating, is more developed in the tropics because they are available throughout the year, and they are in a very abundant form, not like to the temperate zones where in winter time there is a pause or quiescence. The tropical insects are larger, and the harvesting is relatively easy because insects are often clumped together. For example, the locust swarms or the caterpillars in the trees. Of course, that we have to see also the abundance of the species, that in the tropics we have more than 2,000 different insect species to consume. Most of the species, taxonomic groups which are used, are the beetles, the moths and butterflies, wasps, bees and ants. I add that the chimpanzee also like ants, crickets, grasshoppers and locusts, true bugs, dragonflies and the flies. The larval stages are preferred for consumption. In case of the Lepidoptera, the butterflies, almost all species are eaten as caterpillar and not in form of mature butterfly. And very, very developed, and even in Europe start to be preferred, the mealworm, the larval form of the Tenebrio molitor beetle. Some illustration from the insects like the crickets, the cockroach, not too preferred, and the mealworm beetle, the Tenebrio molitor we have mentioned to use as a model animal for the evaluation of the protein quality of the feed and food by the larval form. Why is entomophagy more economical than the meat eating? The insects' feed conversion efficiency is good. It means that the food conversion efficiency or food conversion ratio means that how many food is ingested for 1 kilogram of weight gain. In case of the animal production, for example, to 1 kilogram edible body weight, crickets need 2.1 kilogram of feed. Chicken need 4.5 kilogram, and pigs 9 kilogram, and beef cattle 25 kilogram of feed. The conventional livestock are producing 15% of the global greenhouse gases, nitrogen monoxide from manure and methane from enteric and rumen fermentation, and also the ammonia emission. The insects are producing fewer greenhouse gases. Insect protein production, for example, the mealworms, requires less land area, and also the water needs are lower compared to the 43,000 liter of 1 kilogram of beef meat, sirloin or other. Some more argument that some insects are raised on cereals. Many other insect species, for example the mealworm, can be grown on organic waste. The experiment until now with mealworms shown that pathogen infection induces the production of microbial compounds which neutralize contaminants. So it's a good news that most of the contaminants are neutralized. What can be known about the nutritional value of the insects? It is difficult to give a generalized answer. The number of species is high, and the processing type, drying, boiling, frying, are different. But generally, we can say that edible insects give sufficient energy and protein, meet the amino acid requirements for human, and they are high in monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fatty acids, which are beneficial or essential for the human nutrition. Mopane caterpillars and crickets have a high iron content, and the chitin, the polysaccharide found in the exoskeleton of insects, strengthens the human immune system through influencing the microbiome. Some illustration here. You can see the Mopane caterpillar in mature butterfly form and the larval form. How we can farm the insects? In the tropical countries, the high number of the insect is harvested from the nature, but for example, in Thailand, we have 20,000 cricket farms with a really high production for the market. Here you can see an insect market in Asia. And in Western world, the insects are as part of the pet food. And we have future plans in the near future to use in the chicken diet as a protein source. Insect rearing companies, for example in Netherlands, have set a special production line for human, and these insects are sold freeze-dried. What is the food safety question and preservation and legislation question related to the entomophagy? The insect pathogens are phylogenetically distinct from vertebrate pathogens and are generally regarded as harmless to human. The contamination by human pathogens may may pose a danger. A satisfying concern with edible insects has been allergies. For example, house dust mite allergy and the cross-reactivity of allergens may occur. A solution is the appropriate labeling. Food safety too. The processing methods such as boiling, toasting and frying are recommended, not to eat in a natural form. Edible insects and their products can be preserved without the use of refrigerators through techniques such as drying, acidifying and lactic fermentation, which make easy the transportation and the storage. And in which form can we eat insects? The gastronomy of entomophagy. The palatability is appealing in terms of color, texture, taste, flavor, if they are in natural form. However, with some changes of the gastronomic knowledge, even in Western world, through the education can be easier the entomophagy. Here you can see excellent fried crickets. And the Chinese broilers in some regions are eating grasshoppers. Here you can see the grasshoppers, and let's compare the Chinese grasshopper and the extracted soybean meal composition in dry matter. Crude protein 65 and 48%. Ether extract, fat and oil 8 and 1%. Chitin 9 and crude fiber 4 to 7%. Lysine as the first limiting amino acid in gram per kilogram 38 and 31, and methionine plus cysteine 40, the sulfur containing amino acids 24, and as we know only 13 gram per kilogram dry matter in the soybean. So you see that even in this respect the insect is better. And here you see the true and the apparent metabolizable energy corrected to zero nitrogen retention 11 and 9 megajoule. And what concerned the ether extract content of the grasshopper, this is 84% oleic, linoleic and linolenic acids. It means that unsaturated fatty acids. The Mediterranean diet has an interesting name, but in the history it was detected by a medical person who was the chief doctor for person carried from England to Australia, and they detected that the composition of the food in cold temperature should be different than in warm temperature. But later on it is used for the diet of the people around the Mediterranean Sea, the French, the Spanish, the Italian, Greek, Turkish diet. Generally, we can also build up a food pyramid, and here you can see that at the bottom of the food pyramid you can see once more physical activity and enjoy meals with others, social contact. You have to eat a lot: fruit, vegetables, grains, mostly whole grains, olive oils, leguminous, beans, nuts, and seeds, herbs and spices. Less but medium amount of fish and seafood, even less poultry, egg, cheese and yogurt, with some wine, and meats and sweets only, very rare, once a week or so. Better to understand, you will see the shopping list for a Mediterranean diet. You can see that for meat it's preferred the chicken and the turkey, the oily fish and the shellfish, dairy product, egg, oil, and as a spice we can use the hummus from chickpeas, the tahini from sesame seed, and the balsamic vinegar. A lot of water and a little bit of red wine. The shopping list continues: whole grain breads, whole grain pasta, legumes, brown rice, buckwheat, nuts, seeds, onion and garlic, tomatoes, aubergine or eggplants, courgette or zucchinis, mushrooms with a high fiber content, apples, orange, pears, bananas, grapes and other fruits. So this is the shopping list together with the Mediterranean food pyramid assure a longer life and less cardiovascular diseases compared to the other Western type of diet. Here you will see a whole grain pasta, for example, a penne. The trademark doesn't has meaning, and you can see that in 100 gram or percentage of the daily allowances, daily intake, 100 gram, this is for one person, 1.5 megajoule compared to the 10-12 megajoule of the daily intake is 17%. 12 gram of protein, this is a quarter of the daily intake, 67 gram carbohydrate, and separately token 4.4 gram sugar, not too high, and 3.2 gram of fiber, which is also approximately one quarter of the daily allowances, and very low amount of salt, only 1% of the daily intake. It's a good news. It is told that there is a paradoxon because the Mediterranean people, not obligatory, are making a lot of physical activity, and despite the fact their lifespan is longer than people on Western type of diet. The so-called Mediterranean diet or French paradoxon, what is the solution? Want to lose weight and feel better? So the suggestions are slow down, eat with friends. This is part of the pyramid. Taste the food, eat food worthy of being enjoyed. Have a drink every now and then. Social contact. Make your life more worth living and you will longer. So paradox solved? In my mind, yes. Only one comment that unfortunately the proposed 1-2 glass of red wine is really beneficial against the cardiovascular diseases and atherosclerosis. But it's turned out that even it is not beneficial in respect of cancer. And what about the Paleo diet or Stone Age diet? What is the Stone Age diet? The synonyms are Paleo diet, Caveman diet with a small modification, or hunter-gatherer diet. The diet based on the types of feed presumed to have been eaten by early humans. This is only a theory, and basically consisting of meat, fish, fruit and vegetables, excluding all type of processed food, dairy and cereal product. So back before what was eaten before the Stone Age revolution, the so-called agricultural revolution, the domestication of plants and animals. The theory is that the human genome is designed for consumption of wild plants, seafood and animal body, genetically less suited for modern processed foods like sugar, refined fats and oil, alcohol and other. The Paleo diet's premise, 7 fundamental characteristics can be given if you make a balance based on these principles. Number 1, higher protein intake because the meat, seafood and other animal products are high in protein. Lower carbohydrate intake and lower glycemic index intake, which will assure a slow absorption of the glucose, no spike in blood sugar level, no insulin spikes, and better insulin sensitivity. High fiber intake from the non-starchy vegetables, 8 times more fiber than in the whole grain bread, for example. High fat and oil intake, which is high in monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, in other synonym omega-3 and 6 fatty acids. It is higher in potassium and lower in sodium intake because it's unprocessed fresh food which contains 10 times more potassium than sodium without the common salt. Net dietary alkaline load after the eating, postprandial, balanced dietary acid in kidney and dietary acid load for the kidneys. increased intake of vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and beneficial plant phytochemicals. And here you see that the Flintstone family followed the Paleo diet. What to eat? For the Paleo, we can also build up a pyramid, a food pyramid. Go Paleo, meat, eggs and fish at the bottom, vegetable and fruits in the middle, and nuts in the peak. And of course it's preferred the grass-produced meat and the wild animals' meat, fish and seafood, fresh fruits and veggies, eggs, nuts and seeds, healthful oils pressed only from olive, walnut, flaxseed, avocado and coconut without chemical extraction. And don't eat cereal grains, legumes, dairy products, refined sugar and processed food, included the margarine and oil, potatoes, salt. In one phrase, everything is prohibited which is after the agricultural revolution. The nutritional basics are important. Fish contains a lot of omega-3 fatty acids, which may reduce the risk of heart and inflammatory diseases. The acid-base balance can be maintained because the fruits and vegetables are alkaline-yielding foods, which is important in bone health and will reduce the risk of stroke and hypertension. Fats and fatty acid intake, cutting out trans fat and omega-6 polyunsaturated fatty acids helps decrease cholesterol level in the blood. And the carbohydrates and the glycemic index of the ingested food, they are eating non-starchy, fresh fruits and vegetables, which may help slowly digest the food and prevent the high surge in the blood sugar level, consequently higher energy level throughout the day. You can compare the Paleo diet person with a modern Western type diet. Get your fat belly almost instantly. Paleo and health critics. So healthy cells and brains can be produced through the polyunsaturated fatty acids and omega-3 fatty acids because they play a crucial role in brain function, in the production, in the building of the membranes, normal growth and development of the membranes in the brain. More muscle, less fat, because increasing the metabolism converts extra energy into glycogen in your muscle cells instead of triglycerides in your fat cells. Fat synthase is simulated by the starch, so less starch, less fat synthesis. Better gut health because the white bread contains a lot of supplement additives. White rice, French fries are very low in fiber. They may increase the level of inflammatory messengers, the inflammatory cytokines, and the inflammation in the intestinal tract can be prevented by eating Paleo, by changing the microbiome. it can be a little bit not accepted, but I come back. Reduce inflammation. The omega-3 fatty acid may reduce inflammation, may help lower risk of chronic diseases like coronary heart disease, cancer, and arthritis. From the fat, they can get more energy. The digestion and absorption is good, but the fruits and the vegetables contains fiber, which slow down the absorption. Less allergies, and overall reducing risk of diseases. But the liver cirrhosis by the high-fat diet cannot be excluded. So here you can see a summarizing table, but a little bit optimistic table about the health benefits of the paleo lifestyle. So pros in the paleo diet is that introducing vegetables, fruits, lean proteins, and healthy fats in your diet is healthy. Decrease chances of obesity and cardiovascular diseases, and very important, the diabetes, type 2 diabetes. When you eat right, you feel better because the low glycemic index will give a long-lasting glucose level in the blood. This is a strict program which may be problematic for some people. And the counter-arguments are that why exclude dairy products, legumes, and grains? The legumes may contain high amounts of antinutritives, lectins and phytase. Okay, but research suggests that benefits of legumes outshines their antinutritive content. They have fiber and they have a low glycemic index. Grains can lead to inflammation. Yes, this is true for people with celiac disease, but for the rest of us, the whole grains actually improves the health state. See dog research from Uppsala that from the domestication of the dog has changed the genome, and dog more or less but can digest amylase, for example, starch by means of amylase. And this is the same what happened in the human. Here you can see the timeline of the main dietary shifts during the hominin evolution. And you see that the lineage up to and including extant humans, following divergence from the human chimpanzee common ancestor approximately 6 million years ago. Approximate dates of existence for human and chimpanzee bonobo lineage genera are depicted gray boxes. Timing of some of the important dietary transitions in hominin evolution is highlighted in orange and blue boxes to indicate whether these transitions are supported strongly or suggestively or respectively by the different researches. From Luca and Coworker Evolutionary Adaptations to Dietary Changes. So you see that not only the dogs but also the human adapted after the agricultural revolution. Which shifts and changes occurred in the human? 4.4 million years ago, hominins moved from a forested habitats, woodland, to patchy forest to a savanna one, shift to harder and tougher foods, development of large and thick-mailed teeth to open large seeds. As a plus, the starch-rich underground storage organs of the plants, like the bulbs and corms, were eaten. See today's more at. 2.5 million years ago, the meat by scavenging and hunting became an important part of the daily diet, and advantages were linked to the animal food. And 1.5 million years to 800,000 years ago, the fire and cooking increased the digestibility, both meat and plants. Cooking at the same time may produce byproducts, toxin, which make us prone to cancer and tumor development. In The Scientist, you can read an excellent article, The Hominin Next Door, how they can trace and find out the diet of our ancestors. And we can read a lot from the teeth, and also that in the enamel of the teeth, the so-called, according to the form of the photosynthesis, C4 or C3 plants were present. The molar and premolar teeth are sheeted in an unusually thick coating of enamel. Chemical clues to the ancient diet can be found in that. The ingested food leave a chemical signature in the dental enamel. The carbon-3, carbon-4 plants have a different way of photosynthesis. By this way we can see that which plants were used as a diet. The C4 plants from moderate temperature, and the 3 and the 3/4 plants from more arid climates. And we can see the last act of changes. 12,000 years ago, the plant and animal domestication took place. This is the Stone Age revolution, and instead of hunter-gatherer communities, higher population density and cities were developed. Reduction at the same time, with a reduction parallel with a reduction of food intake diversity. Only the produced plant were eaten. The agricultural products, the seeds and the potato, are high in starch, which caused changes in insulin metabolism. The folate intake decreased by these changes. But at the same time, there was a genetic adaptation of enzymes like the dogs. By genome scan studies, we can see that the lactase, fluorescein hydrolase, and salivary and pancreatic amylase, and nitrogen acetyltransferase 2 changed to make possible to digest the milk sugar, and also to neutralize toxins produced during the cooking. And changes occurred in the sensory perceptions, and this is a critics of the Paleolithic diet. See later. We have to have a lot of details about the Paleolithic diet because it's very popular. So summarizing, you can see that the paleo diet use vegetable, fruits, eggs, wild meats. It's a dream. And non-paleo refined processed food, sugar, grains, bread with a lot of additives, and sugar and salt, bean and dairy. And the caveman diet, it's a little bit of modification of the paleo diet, from hunting, gathering up to the social media. It's a big problem of the humanity, and everybody try to develop more and more and better dietary habit. The paleo diet is very known for you, and the caveman diet with the founder Mark Sisson. The paleo was founded more or less given Lauren Cordain. The caveman diet allow occasionally raw and fermented dairy eating, some saturated fats. Eggs is also, of course, allowed, but allows soy products in fermented form, and allows some legumes. So this is a little bit free paleo diet. Here you can see some details about the history, that the former endurance athlete Mark Sisson wrote the primal blueprint, scheduling the caveman diet, which is based on the topic that eating whole foods that were available during caveman times included some legumes too. And the caveman diet does permit some dairy, especially in fermented form, yogurt and kefir, and small amount of soy, red wine, dark chocolate, potato, rice, and quinoa. And also you have to change the lifestyle. So this is the pyramid for the caveman diet. And we can see that the caveman carbohydrate curve is very important. They follow the daily carbohydrate intake, and they don't allow more than 105 gram carbohydrate per day. Higher is not proposed. To compare, the Atkins diet allow only 20 gram carbohydrate per day. This is an illustration of the primer blueprint carbohydrate curve. What we have to see: effortless weight maintenance between 100 and 150 gram of carbohydrates. If you want weight loss and etc., you can decrease, or if you want a keto diet. As I've mentioned, the exercise is an important part of the caveman diet, but they have three proposals: instruction that avoid chronic cardio, frequent medium to high intensity sustained workout, avoid chronic strength training, and avoid regimented schedule. Instead, allow for spontaneous, intuitive variation in type, difficulty, and frequency of workout. But it's difficult to follow. So you can see that living the caveman lifestyle, the top 3 ways we can live the caveman lifestyle are sleeping, practicing intermittent fasting, this 16-hour a day, and doing ancient workout. And here you can see the physical activity pyramid. Move frequently at a slow pace, less lift heavy things, and spring only for some times. And this is the reasoning for that by Mark Sisson, the primal blueprint. Eat reasonably generous amounts of eggs, meat, chicken, fish, nuts, and seeds, plus all the vegetables you want and fruits. And stay away from all grains and processed feeds. The problem is that the lack of dairy product dramatically reduces the calcium intake, which must be supplemented. And the increased meat consumption and the red meat consumption may increase the risk of cancer. So the healthy lifestyle strategy, get daily exercise. So to evaluate a diet, we have to use scientific approach, epi and nutrigenomics, the balance among the major nutrients, mineral and vitamin levels should be maintained. You have to personalize the diet, the genotype, the possible single nucleotide polymorphism, which may be get by gene chips. You have to see your acid-base balance and the so-called PRAL value. We have to eat functional foods, and as a importance in the NRC recommendation, the new eating pyramid contains daily physical activity. Okay, thank you very much for your precious attention. This is the end for today.